Hi, it's Ursula from ursula-smith.com, and if you're like me, you don't have a manufacturing company where you can make your own stencils and embossing folders and all of that kind of stuff from your own design. But fear not, today I'm going to show you how you can do, it's not really an embossing folder, but it's an embossing plate, I would say. I'm going to use, you can use cardboard, the thicker, the stiffer, the better, but I'm going to use this plastic sign material. You can see I've already used some of it already. It cuts really well with metal shears, and I'm also going to be using, actually I'm going to use the extra heavy gel, pretty much whatever thick medium that you have laying around. I wouldn't use the soft gel, but there's hard molding paste, there's regular molding paste. This is kind of a combination of gel and molding paste. And so I'm going to use this today, and a stencil. And like I said, my sign material, I just found this at Ace Hardware. But you can also use, like I said, a thicker cardboard. And let me show you how it's done. Hi, I'm back, and here's my leftover piece of a sign. And I've done this before just using a single level of a stencil, or just a stencil that I cut out on my digital cutter. And in the past I've just used one single piece of paper that I've cut out, but in this case I've cut out two different pieces of paper, same stencil, layer them and tape them together, so it's just a little bit thicker, just because I want to see if it would give a higher raised image and maybe emboss even a little bit deeper. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use these shears, and I didn't want to try wrecking my any of my good scissors, so I knew these would cut. And I'm just going to cut this piece of plastic down. And I generally try to cut it bigger than like a greeting card size. Normally I have a piece of paper that I cut to greeting card size, and I kind of measure the piece of plastic, but I'm getting low on the plastic, so I'm just cutting it so it will fit the stencil. But the reason I do that is so that when I emboss, I don't get the edge embossed into the piece of paper. And so that's why I cut it a little bit bigger than the piece of paper that I normally use. And normally I do greeting cards with this sort of thing. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to lay my stencil down on top of the plastic. And it really doesn't matter which side you do it on. And like I said, you can also use a heavier piece of cardboard, but this is just a little bit stiffer, so I find it gives a better imprint. And then in this case, I'm going to be using the heavy gel molding paste. Actually, here's another one. Anything that's kind of heavy and thick. Actually, I could just even use this solid gel. So let's go ahead and use that since I have it here. And then you're going to take whatever implement you like to use to spread your paste, and you're just going to do that. So I'm just going to spread the paste across my stencil. And you're going to try and just get it on the image itself, not onto the rest of the plastic. And then you're going to lift up your design. And now you're left with an embossed image of your stencil. And here's the tricky part. You're going to have to let it dry. And so then when we get back, I'm going to show you how to use this design and emboss with it using a die cut machine, like the Big Shot is actually the one that I'm going to use, but if you have the Cuttlebug or anything like that. I also have done this if you check out my ursula-smith.com/blog or the AccuCut blog, I have an example of how to emboss with the big AccuCut machine, but in this case I'm just going to be using the little Sizzix. So I will be back when this is dry. So while I'm waiting for my other stencil to dry, I just wanted to show you that here I have a stencil that I've already done, and it's already dried and cured. And here's my Sizzix machine. So I have the platform, and I have the first two tabs out. So I'm just using basically the bottom piece. And you're going to have to play around with your sandwich based on what you end up using. Like if I used cardboard, it's a little bit thinner, and so I might need to use one of the other tabs. But then what you're going to do is you're going to lay it down on, your first cutting mat. Then comes your embossing plate, then your piece of paper, and then you're going to need one of these embossing mats, and you can buy this from Sizzix. It's like silicone rubber and pretty sturdy. It's thicker and more cushiony than the foam, the fun foam, but sometimes I add an extra piece. This is just regular fun foam. I add an extra piece over the top just to kind of take up some extra room. Sometimes that's too thick, and then I'll use like a piece of paper as a shim. Actually, I've forgotten what I need to shim with. So let's give this a shot with the fun foam. And then you're just going to roll the whole sandwich through the machine. And that's a little bit too thick, so I don't want that big shim. I actually might not even need the piece of paper. So there we go. And you're just going to roll the whole sandwich through the machine. And you can do it a couple times if you want. I actually probably didn't even need that extra piece of paper as a shim. And then you're going to lift up. And then there is, boy, it's really hard to see. Okay, I'm going to turn and go into the light there. You can see that a little bit better. There's your imprinted, embossed image. And then, of course, you can use an ink pad or a pastel, something to bring the image out a little bit more. So let me show you that. Just use an ink pad to bring out that embossed image a little bit more. And of course, you can go to town on this. You can use multiple colors. Like I said, you can use a little bit of pastel on it if you want. Whatever you like. But there you go. There's your embossing plate made from your own design, cut out on a digital cutter, stenciled onto a plate, and then embossed using your Sizzix die cut machine with the embossing rubber. And when my other one dries, now again, this was made with just a single stencil and then embossed with that onto the plate. And when my other one dries, I'm going to try it with the double stencil and see if that gives me a thicker design and an even thicker emboss. But even the single works pretty well, so I hope you like that technique. Thanks for joining me. And I'm back, and here is the plate that I did with the double thickness stencil. It looks like it's a little bit thicker, so I'm just going to do the same thing that I did before, make that same sandwich. So my Sizzix cutting plate, my embossing plate, piece of paper. And then what worked for me was the embossing rubber. Let's straighten that out a little bit. And actually it looks like the plate is bigger. I don't know if you can see that because it's white on white, but it is a little bit bigger than my greeting card piece of paper, so I won't get any embossing from the rubbing. Paper shim, which actually I didn't really need the last time, so I'm gonna not use that this time. My top Sizzix plate, and then I'm just gonna roll it through. Roll it back. Oh yeah, that worked great. Actually, it did rip the paper a little bit, so I probably would only do it one direction. But that gave a much thicker embossing this time. So again, we could take our ink pad and rub it across the top. And that actually didn't even get much on the, if I had been a little more careful, I probably could have just inked the embossed part. So double stencil does seem to work better with the molding or the gel, heavy gel, to make your own embossing plate from your own stencil. Hope you like that tip. Thanks for joining me. See you next time.